So it's come to the point now where I'm getting my flight controller soldered up and ready to mount into the quad. This is the Naze32 flight controller. It's pretty standard what most people are using. Some people are still using the CC3D, but I mean, for the most part, the Naze32 is well documented, it's well supported. You'll get a lot of helpful information about this particular flight controller. This is the acro version, meaning it's kind of the bare minimum one. It doesn't have most of the sensors like the barometer and magnetometer, no GPS. It's basically just the accelerometer and the gyro, because I'm not going to be doing that advanced stuff. It's just the bare minimum to get you going. So I've already soldered one set of header pins on there, and basically what the ones I put on there, what they're for, focus in there. I got the set that's going to measure my battery voltage. I've got a set going to my buzzer, and another set that will connect to my receiver and supply telemetry back to my transmitter. The receiver I'm going to be using, I have a Tyrannus transmitter. The receiver will be the D4R2, and it has that built-in telemetry feature. So I've already done that set. Relatively simple, just like soldering the pins that were on the power distribution board for each of the motor leads. But we do have some other ones to do. I need the motor output wires, so I'm going to have to put the headers in there. You notice you got three sets here of 6. The outer set, as indicated by that little marker right there, that's going to be your grounds. The one in the center with that plus indicator would be your voltage, positive voltage, and then the third one, indicated by that little waveform there next to the 5-volt. These square pads, those are the signal wires, or the signal inputs, or rather outputs, to the motors. So what I'm going to do to cut down on what I need to put there, I really only need one input to provide power to the board. So I'm going to use that on this first one right here. You can see if you flip it over, they're numbered 1 through 6 there. So the one kind of in the center of the board, this one here, that's motor number 1. So what I'm going to do is take I went and got some extra just single row header pins, and broke off 3 of them, and I will place them in row number 1 there. Solder that in, so I'm going to have the ground and the power and the signal for motor number 1, which is already wired up on the PDB as providing voltage to the board. And then for the other motors 2, 3, and 4, I don't need ground or power coming in on those, so we'll just take another 3-pin and place it in just the signals like that. And so basically I'll be able to use some standard servo connectors running off those the motor inputs on the sorry, the cat keeps interrupting. Those motor inputs on from the PDB coming right to the flight controller. I'll just have two plugs. Try to keep the wires down to a minimum if at all possible. So just flip this over and get going on the soldering. Be right back. Alright, again, try to get going on soldering these here. Hopefully I provide a good view. I'm going to add a little bit of flux to each one just to help this process go along. Just dab the pin and the pad a little bit with the flux pen there. That should help. And I am by no means an expert, but I just try to, I'm going to tack each one pin from each set of 3 to kind of hold it in there. And take much. Just make sure I heat the pad and the pin. Solder kind of wicks in there. Okay, and those two little dabs should hold it. And I can do the other two on each one. Just kind of skip around so I don't overheat anything. Move from pad to pad. It's kind of tall. Knock that down just a little bit. Alright. Focus. So there we go. Just 6 little pins tacked in there. And so for the motor side, that cleans it up a lot. So what's left is to solder in the lead that's going to go to the receiver. And so you've got, normally you have a pin header that goes here. You know, if you're not doing PPM on the receiver like I am, PPM is just going to take all 4 or 6 channels and send the signals over one wire instead of having to have all 6. So as you see, you've got up to 8 channel inputs there. If you solder in the header, you can then plug everything in. Not going to be doing that. I'm trying to keep it nice and clean and as few wires as possible. So I'm going to solder my input to the receiver just directly to the pads there. I've already tinned the pad a little bit, and I've tinned my leads on the wire. So I'm just going to be hitting each one. And what we've got is this first one that's kind of unmarked. That's ground. The one in the center with the dot is your 5 volts, and the number 1 would be you know, channel number 1, signal wire. So try to get that touched in there. And finally, signal. Alright. You can see you've got that going on there. Ground power signal, and that'll go over to my receiver. So that's all the pins I needed to solder in there, and now I can get it mounted in the quad and start getting things wired into it. Alright, so I got the wiring hooked up to the Naze32 right now, and just zoom in there, let you see that a little bit. So just by using a couple servo leads, tidy this up with some little zip ties there, but just using 2 servo leads instead of a big tangle of wires like the jumper kit that came with it. I get all 4 of my motors and power to the board. This side over here, are two jumpers I made from leftover the servo lead, the motor leads. I cut off each ESC. I just soldered them down to the board there, and one's for the VBAT and one's for the buzzer. We can get that to focus. There we go. Sorry about that, but you can see this one says buzzer, this one's for the VBAT, so they actually cross over onto different ports on the board there. And then that third set of pins, that'll be for telemetry to the receiver. But this allows, there's the buzzer, I mounted it in the back there. So this will allow me to control the buzzer from a switch on the transmitter. And the other lead is monitoring direct battery voltage and reporting it to the Naze32, which will then be sending it through the telemetry back to the transmitter. So you can see the back side, how those motor pins look. Okay, and again, you notice that arrow that's normally pointing to the front. In this case, it's pointing out to the right side of the quad. So when I set this up in clean flight, I will have to indicate that the board is twisted 90 degrees. All right, so come back out. Go ahead and plug the battery in real quick and get a quick little test of the motors. Alright, so getting pretty close to being done here. Next will be setting up my transmitter, binding the receiver, and going about getting the board programmed in clean flight. I need to upload the newest version of clean flight firmware onto the board and get to configuring it, and so that'll be coming up in the next video. Thank you very much.